Hello, my name is Diana Taylor, and I will be doing my MicroTeach program on the movie Blow, starring Johnny Depp, Penelope Cruz. And the movie is based on the life of George Young, an American drug smuggler who was a major player in the cocaine trade in the United States in the 1970s and 1980s. Now, in order to understand American culture in the 1970s and 80s, one must go back a decade or so and study the American counterculture. At this time, because of situations like the Vietnam War, Cold War, Civil Rights Movement, young people were becoming suspicious of their government, their parents, and other authority figures, and they began to revolt against what was seen as acceptable social norms. This counterculture was known for sex, drug use, even long hair, any form of rebellion against the status quo. The 2001 movie Blow illustrates how the counterculture moved mainstream. George Young, who is the main character, moves to California at the height of the counterculture movement. He saw everyone around him getting stoned, and he felt that California was very liberated. After some success selling drugs on Manhattan Beach in California, Young returns to the colleges on the East Coast for his drug selling. And at this time, it was fairly easy to smuggle drugs on an airplane from coast to coast. Luckily, his girlfriend Barbara was a stewardess, and the airlines never checked her bag, so it was easy for her to carry pounds and pounds of marijuana from California to Massachusetts. In 1977, George Young is introduced to Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar. Then he begins smuggling cocaine. There is still little security in airports and on the American border at this time. As a matter of fact, Young and his friends hire their own pilots with their own planes to smuggle the cocaine, rather than using commercial flights. Drugs, sex, partying, and vice in general went from being sort of an underground secret to being commonplace in American culture. One only needs to look at the television programs that were accepted during this decade to see the change in American culture. During the 1960s, America had the Andy Griffith Show or The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, shows where simple problems were solved after half an hour and each character really cared for the other characters and only wanted what was best. Now in the 1970s and 80s we had shows like Dallas, where there was lying, cheating, backstabbing, anything to get what was coming to you. Everybody looked out for number one. Now at the same time, the United States government was cracking down on illegal activities. New organizations like the Drug Enforcement Agency and Child Protective Services were formed during the 1970s. A good example is that during the 19th century, any kid could go to the corner store and buy morphine or whiskey for their parents. Now in the movie, which takes place in the 1970s, George Young's daughter was taken by protective services after a party at their home. The war on drugs continues into the 21st century. While drugs are still smuggled into the United States, stiffer penalties await those who are arrested.